Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to today's Wednesday Harmonize to Energize. My name is Terry Matthews. I work here at the Scottsdale Jin Shin Jyutsu office. For those people that are completely new to Jin Shin Jyutsu is an art of harmonizing energy in the body. We do that by placing our hands on what we call safety energy locks, left and right side of the spine. There are 26 of them, all complete. Today's version of Jin Shin Jyutsu is all about the mystery storyteller, the mystery presenter of a Jin Shin Jyutsu story, one that inspires the person, one that was successful using certain holds and flows. So without further ado, let's welcome today's mystery storyteller. Yes. And here we have none other than the one and only Sarah Harper, International Jin Shin Jyutsu presenter. Now, I really didn't plan this at all. I mean, poof, there she is, magic. Sarah, welcome. Off you go.
Thank you. Delighted to be here with you, Terry.
Well, you're welcome. Background.
So, one of my favorite stories, I have many about Mary, but one of my favorites is one, and I have to back up. I met my husband in San Diego at a cranial sacral workshop, and 6 months later, he moved here, and he said, I want you to meet my father. He took me up to Scottsdale to meet his father. His father was a horse veterinarian. And we went to lunch, and he asked me what I did. And I said, I do an art called Jin Shin Jyutsu. And he goes, I know all about that. And I thought, no, you don't. What am I going to say? I was like, no way. And then he said, well, I was Mary's horse veterinarian when they first came here, and she used to show me things to do on the animals. I've, been practicing. And then I went to the Jin Shin Jyutsu office. I looked up all the rosters of previous classes I had been in, and I was in them with my father-in-law. He was in the same class, but sometimes there could be 100 people in the class, and I was dumbfounded, for one, to find out that, the man that I met in San Diego, his father was the horse veterinarian for Mary, and he had taken classes with her. And then during that lunch, he said, yeah, I used to get sessions from her regularly, and then she got too busy. And I said, well, I'll get you in. And now this is
sleuth.
20 years later, and it was after Mary's accident, and so she didn't recognize people or show a lot of recognition when you come in the door for a session. So we all came in. I had a session scheduled for my father-in-law, Stan, and myself, and we all came in. He got on the table, and Mary had me on the other side. Stan was sitting in the corner at the office, and Mary sat by his side. She listened to his pulses, and she kind of turned her head, and then she listened again. And then she looks at me and she goes, I've worked on him before. That was 20 years. I recognized him by listening to his pulses. And then she listens again, and she looks at me and she goes, how come you haven't been working on him? Like, I just met him. Yeah. I got
Evil eye, stink eye.
But my husband is an acupuncturist. I have practiced Jin Shin Jyutsu. What was so unbelievable and miraculous to both of us was that she recognized him not by face, not by voice, but by listening to his wrist from 20 years prior. And that to me was just like, gosh, you see how pulsing is such a lifetime study, and how it's such a for her, it was such a deep place of knowing. And for me, that was miraculous. What do you think about the pulses, Terry? Do you know them like that when you listen to someone and you feel the difference of their pulse from the one week to the next week, or listening to the pulses?
It's remarkable. And, I always do my best to listen at all the different levels. Sometimes it's not always so clear. Sometimes pulses are similar. But the difference is when they do appear are often quicker than I would have thought. Sometimes it's like I'm holding and I've got one texture, and then like 15, 20 minutes later, I tend to check in every 15 to 20 minutes when I'm practicing. There has been a remarkable shift. And, that's Mother Nature moving energy through my hands, perhaps, and them allowing it. It's phenomenal. I mean, what a receiver, what a playback mechanism. Powerful.
Mary used to say, we always listen for harmony. We always listen for the harmony of the body. And then, she says, we take in what that person's lifestyle is. And then we're listening, though, first and foremost, to the harmonizing. And to me, that's been such a lovely way to take in and listen to the pulse. And Mary used to tell me, each time you listen, do a flow, then go back and listen. And she said, for a while in the beginning, just do bust line, waistline, hip line, bust line, waistline, hip line. And so for years, I did that practice of, here I would go with the flow, I thought, and then I go back and listen again. And Mary used to say, find somebody in your home, listen to them in the morning, listen to them in the afternoon, listen later in the day. She said, if they catch a cold, they stub their toe, they break their arm, oh, good, let me listen, right? And that pulse listening was really a sense of how do we listen? How do we get quiet? How do we really tune in?
And in those moments, I mean, that's, to me, I'm hearing in that moment that someone had that situation. You're practicing connecting in the moment. Yeah. Wow.
So to me, that sense of listening also requires me being deeply quiet and really focused on my own breath, my own centering, grounding, so that I can really be available and listen. What do you notice, Terry, when you listen for pulse?
Hold on, I'm just going to scratch my back.
Oh, let me hear how that feels in the pulse. Is it?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, there's a little bit of vibration in the ring finger here. So
when you scratch your back, you can feel it in your index pulse or your ring finger pulse.
My ring finger, yeah, and it was vibrating.
Yeah.
What was the question again? I got distracted.
About what you do in terms of centering before you listen to the pulses.
Well, to be honest, I often have already done some exhalations and inhalations as I'm literally walking into the room, and then I'll sit down with the client and I just make a connection, literally. I mean, I literally touch the body straight away. I remember Christina Minamasawa, who was one of our instructors many moons ago, saying, here we are before this being who's willing to share their story with us. It's a sacred moment. And she would actually have us hold our hands like this, just together, make that complete connection. I kind of somehow lost that on the way, and I just placed my hands, but it's still like I'm introducing myself to them gently. And then when I feel some kind of connection with them and myself, onto the wrists. So that's it.
So I want to tell one other piece about pulse listening and Mary. So as I became I started with it when I was 14 receiving sessions, but as I became a student and realized there were flows and pulse listening and all these different things, at one point I decided I was going to convince Mary, because she would say pulses are secret. And, she would never reveal the pulses. And so I was determined. I said, Mary, I'm your student. You can tell me. I want to know. I just really went after her on letting me know when she listened to my pulse. And so, I was talking her into it the whole way, just as we were entering into the rooms, I laid down on the table and she got really quiet and she listened to my pulses and she goes, hard worker. And that's all she would say. And so next time I decided I was going to convince her. This was like, I just kept going and kept, trying really hard. Right. And she listens, she gets really quiet and she goes, now I know all your secrets.
Yes, and she probably did.
And then I went to have another session and I kind of, gave up on trying to convince her of anything. And she listened to my pulse and she listened. She got very quiet and she said, lucky me, lucky you.
Wow.
And then after, a while and many years later, I went to have my session. And she got very quiet. This is one of my favorite moments. And she got really quiet as she listened to my pulses. And she said, I will remember your body to God.
Yeah.
And it was like, So really, I feel that way about the pulses. They are like this, I don't know, it's like a very sacred moment. You are sharing your heart, your soul, and here's that moment to really listen, get quiet. And really, when I think about myself as a practitioner, a student of this art, I think, how can I be of best service to this person with the skills I have in this moment right now? How do I really just show up and be present and let the flows that I'm guided to do by listening really in that sacred space that we get to when we listen to pulse.
Sacred signal box.
Yeah.
A more positive aspect of the term SS. Yeah.
It feels like such a sacred space, that moment that we are quietly listening.
So tell us about the textures.
Yeah, textures. What about textures? We should save that one for a pulse listening class. But the textures, to me,
Spoil sport.
You know what? Often I'll start with having everybody just touch at the upper arm to feel a texture. Just start by holding your own high 19 and tell me what texture you feel. Right? Okay, pull it off. Did it feel fluffy? Did it feel gummy? Did it feel rock and rod? Pulsation? Each of those, you can just have a sense of even touching. It's just like with the words we use. We talk about the vibration of trying to, or the vibration of anger, or the vibration of worry. And I do that with just simple words, right? Terry, ask me how I am.
Sarah, how are you?
I'm fine.
I'm convinced.
Okay, so ask me how I am.
How are you, Sarah?
I'm fine. Can you feel it in the vibration that there maybe is something else?
Yes, the underlying story.
Okay, now ask again.
Sarah, for the last time, how are you?
I'm fine. Right?
Yeah.
You can tell it's almost like the resonance of the words have a texture or attitude. And I would say, any mom can tell you what kind of day their child had by the way the door closes, by the way the backpack drops, from the moment the door opens to, you can almost tell the moment someone in your family comes home, you can almost feel the vibration of their day the moment they walk in the door, right? There's a sense, there's a feeling. And I think the same way about the pulse listening. So much of this we already innately know within us. And it's getting to that place where we're quiet enough to really listen and really see and really hear those messages. That's how I think about those textures and listening. What do you think, Terry?
I'm curious because, some of the early instructors have often said, you begin the practice on another being, the treatment, the minute they walk in the door, the observation and the voice. I wasn't aware because when I, had the chance to be with Mary, she knocked me out. And so I have no idea what she did beyond, I remember her reading the pulses and saying something like, oh yeah, she went to my 5s and 16s and she said, lot of history. And that was the mantra for good night, Terry, see you 7 hours later. But to you, someone who spent an incredible amount of time with Mary, receiving and learning, did you ever notice her, observing people in other ways, or was it too subtle to be observed?
Oh, I've got story after story, Terry. And I want to go back to something you said. One of the things she said to me about those sessions, she said, it begins the minute the phone rings. The session begins the minute the phone rings. She said she can already hear, like the questions, the texture of their voice. Some people are really quick. Some people take a really long time. There was already a flavor or a texture the moment the phone rang. She felt like that's when the session began. And that's how she put it to me, was the moment the phone rings.
No, that's great. I don't think I'd heard that. If I did, I'd forgotten. But I did often wonder because, Mary was, to me, this serene individual who said very little. So I couldn't always pick up the clues. Fascinating, yeah. Is that it?
What else do you want? And are we going to the 20 minutes? Yeah, that's it.
You got 1 more minute.
So I think it's so important. Let's just feel it on ourselves for a moment. Come on, Terry, let's do the big hug and let yourself connect. Let your feet go to the center of the earth. With each exhaling and inhaling, feel the lengthening of your spine. And as you are holding here, see if you can feel all the rhythm and texture and movement of your own heartbeat, your own breath, your own pulse. Exhaling, find your own natural rhythm. And really, this is the source. This is the core of Jin Shin Jyutsu. Now, Mary used the words grounding, sensation, awareness, and breath.
Can you say that again? Grounding, sensation, awareness, and breath?
Yep.
My memory is improving. Excellent.
Then we get still. And she said, really, when you before you put your hands on, you let your feet center to the center of the earth. Let them connect, ground, plant your roots to the center of the earth. Feel the lengthening of your spine. Feel all the sensation. Bring your awareness to your breath. Really, I use that every time I come to the table, every time I start a class. I love that sensation of grounding, being aware of the sensations, and connecting with breath. And there, we feel our own pulse, our own rhythm.
Beautiful. Very grounding and very calming. And also very joyful. Maybe it's because we're connecting to small intestine and the heart here. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what you feel, but it's actually, all of a sudden, I feel joyful.
Okay. All the depths get covered with this big B, breath essence.
Yeah.
Connects us to source. Okay.
Do you want to take a quick question? Someone earlier,
Sure.
no names mentioned, Caroline. So someone said, isn't breaking up the pulse reading going to have some way of, disconnecting the flow? And I mean, I admit when I first learned Jin Shin, the instructors would just say, hey, read the pulse at the beginning and then at the end. I actually instinctively felt after each flow I needed to. And when I found out that's how Mary taught, I felt a little bit better. So my view to that, Caroline, whichever it is, I apologize. You should follow your connection with the pulse, how you want to do that. That would be my sense. What would you say, Sarah?
I went through many stages of learning with Mary, and one of the things she said, practice this flow, go listen to the pulse. Practice this flow, listen to the pulse. She said, you really want to know about pulse listening, you got to listen. Got to start listening. And so, she gave me this way of listening to my own pulse. She said, lay your hand across your chest this way. Don't try and roll your wrist because you won't be able to hear it. She just had me lay my hand across and listen with an index, middle, and ring into the radial groove and listen that way. And she'd say, listen lightly, deeply, and then get out. She said, do it. It's a snapshot of a given moment, right? So,
was your hand placed there deliberately over the heart? You think she got you
well,
there?
whether you do this wrist or
I was just curious.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a nice way to listen to your own pulse. It's a nice way to really check in. So
yeah. Well, everybody, I don't know about you, but I thought there was some real nuggets there, and there will be a replay. Thank you, Ale, of today's sharing by Sarah on our YouTube site, the Jin Shin Jyutsu official YouTube site. But before we let you all go, Sarah, would you like to talk a little bit about your forthcoming webinar, etc., etc.?
I'm doing a webinar this weekend, and we're going to be looking at fourth depth. We're going to be looking at that reverse and increase of fourth depth flow and why it's so important, and bladder, kidney essence, and how those are such important ones to do if you got a physical body and you want to be moving and in perfect circulation. These are flows that I feel like are really vital. So we're going to be looking at their essence, and Terry, you're going to be there to play along with the whole utilizing the flows.
I shall be present. Whether I'm correct or not is another matter.
You'll be there.
I'll be here, but fourth depth flows. You got to have them. I got to have them. We're going through so many transitions at the moment, and I see it and hear it in myself and others. There's uncertainty, and there is a lot of what Mary called false evidence appearing real, because you've only got to read the news and you've got 50,000 different variations on the same theme. Which one is really true? And people are uncertain because as we go through this phase, all these different opinions are being shared, and some of them are, stirring people up.
So, and Kidney Essence helps us it's the one that's connected to our creativity, and same with 13. And really, I think we need creative ways of harmonizing and looking at the body. So to me, bladder, kidney, reverse and increase of that fourth depth are going to be really powerful holds to utilize. So yeah, that's where I'm going to put my focus for the webinar.
Yeah, because in the end, folks, certainly the way I see it, if we do get caught up in the false evidence appearing rules, we're actually reducing our capacity to use our imagination and be creative and be resourceful. Yeah? If we suck into all the icky yucky stuff. So I will be there, and don't be square, come and join us. I'll be there. Chandra should be there, if not, and we shall look forward to.
So Terry, fourth depth represents flow, perfect circulation. So we're going to put our focus there.
That's right.
Focus on the essence level.
That's right. So we're looking forward to sharing that with you on Saturday, 2:00 New York time, and do the conversions for all your other times. But it's 2:00 New York time. And with that, without further ado, thank you, everyone. Hope you have an enjoyable rest of the day, rest of the week, and we'll see you on Saturday.
Sounds great. See you then. Thank you.
Thank you again, Sarah. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.